Good evening, Viking parents. My name is Mr. Hamilton, and I teach your son or daughter in U.S. history for 7th grade and Louisiana history for 8th grade. Real quick, I'm going to get straight to the point. I'm going to go over and focus on the structure of the test, the purpose of this packet, and what your child should get from it. First, students should complete this packet in its entirety as a practice for the upcoming LEAP assessment. Once again, this year's test focuses on skills, research skills especially, being able to use primary and secondary sources to pull information so that they can use that information to help them choose the correct answer. Also, students must be able to cite evidence from text when writing. When actually responding to a different task or question that requires them to cite evidence and pull information from the text in written form. Lastly, parents, I ask that you all use the answer portion of this actual document, of this packet, to help guide the students and to help correct any mistakes that they may make along the way. First, let's take a look at the packet. So this is your son or daughter's 2017 LEAP preparation packet. It's set up just like the LEAP. The first session of the LEAP, the first 90-minute session that has 5 different item sets. And when I say an item set, it refers to the groups of questions that are similar or connected to the same, I guess you could say, topic. So you may have an item set that has 5 questions, 5 multiple choice questions, and 1 technology enhanced. You may have one that has 4 select response or multiple choice questions and a constructed response. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, and that deals with the test structure. So go to the next page in your packet for me. And it's a larger version of it up on the board behind me. But this just goes over the first chart, deals with the setup of the test, how it's broken down into different item sets, and similar in 5 questions, selected responses, and you may have a constructed response, or in place of that constructed response, you may have a technology enhanced item. And that's one of those items where the student has to drag and drop or drop down a window. It's just something a little extra that also identifies the student knows how to actually use the different components of the computer. So in the actual structure, it shows this 90-minute session at the very top. All right. So you have 90 minutes and you have 5 item sets. All right. For each of those sets, you have 5 to 4 select responses. And when they say select response, that's just a multiple choice question. And you also have you have a technology enhanced question, or you have a constructed response, or an extended response. All right. Now, I want to talk about those add-ons, or I guess you could say the technology, extended, and constructed. A constructed response is simply a question where the student has to write. And in this case, it's going to be on computer, so they'll type. That's where they'll have a short answer where they pull information from the actual documents to help them answer it. Technology enhanced, once again, is the drop down, the click and drag type questions. Now, the extended response is one that requires a little more in-depth thinking and more writing. This one sometimes will require several paragraphs, maybe a couple here and there, but it will require the student to pull evidence directly from the text using their own words and to organize it in a fashion that expresses everything that the question asks for. Now, one thing that I want to point out that's very important about this test structure is that each set of questions actually has sources attached to it. Now, you will have somewhere between 1 to 4 sources to pull information from. So it's not like the student just has to come directly from memory, though that's going to be a key component as well, but they will have sources available to them. So research skills is the most important component of this test. If they can pull information from the text, interpret it, and analyze, they will do well. If you look at the bottom, this actually breaks down the actual percentages of each area of concentration of the actual test. So for history, which is the largest percentage point component, is 50% of the test. Geography, 12%. Civics, 26%, which is the second highest portion. And economics, which is 12%. In this home stretch, we're going to focus more so on the 2 big components, which is history and civics. You'll be seeing a lot of different homework assignments on a site called iCivics. untitled.org. It's a site that kind of makes learning about the government and its functions, I guess you could say, easier and fun for the students. So you'll be seeing that coming home as well. Now, on this back side, turn with me, we have a checklist. All right. Now, this checklist comes into play on constructive response questions and extended response questions. It's simply a way for students to help organize their drafting of their rough draft or their planning of the writing and their final drafts. And they can check them off as they go to see if they have each and every component. And by following this checklist, it enhances or increases their chances of responding to the question correctly. If they can see it for themselves as they go and self-assess with this checklist, it increases their chances of responding the correct way. Now, the last portion that I'm going to go over, I'm going to look at the first task. So in this first task, this first page, it says instructional task number 1. You have a source here. It says document number 1, and the source deals with slavery, an anti-slavery convention. All right. If you flip on the back side, everything is front and back. You see another document, another source with an illustration. All right. It's an excerpt from an actual newspaper called The Emancipator. You go to the next page, you also see an illustration. All right, it says the tree of slavery, and you have some words around it. You see a gentleman trying to chop the tree down. And lastly, on the next page of this first task, you have another source. It says a family sold apart. So it's a depiction of a slave family being sold and separated. So you see a variety of sources, not just one type, not just a long worded document. You see pictures, you'll see illustrations, sometimes you'll see charts and graphs. But this shows you that students need to be able to pull information once again, and how important it is that they are able to pull information from the sources. So they'll use those sources that I just showed you to help answer questions that follow on the next page. Sorry, upside down. All right, so you have 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this one, and on the back side you have your extended response. All right. I have areas on this portion. All they have to do is circle the correct answer. You can time them. I prefer that you time them. This whole packet together takes 90 minutes. You can just set a little timer for them on your phone or something, and they can use all of these sources. Now, I ask that parents remove the answer sheets at the back before they give the packet to their child. This is because I want you to use it as a source for you. So when you're checking their work after they've completed a task, to see where they made mistakes and how you can go back and fix it. Once again, it's all about analyzing and pulling out information from these sources. So students have to be real good researchers more than anything else. So if they can analyze the source at a high level, if they can use the checklist and the strategies implemented in class to identify what they need to respond to and what information they need from the source, then they'll do fine on the test. But researching and pulling information from the sources is key, it's pivotal to this assessment. So this is what we're sending home. Let's go ahead and implement this and work together and get this thing done. I know your son or daughter will do well if they really give everything they have towards this assessment. I know sometimes a LEAP can seem like it's, I guess you could say, a pressure cooker, and the students sometimes feel overwhelmed by it. But I try to remind them all the time that life is going to always throw you some pressure cookers and tests. It may be on a paper form, it may be on a computer, it may be in the form of something, a situation in your actual day-to-day life. But no matter what, you have to overcome that obstacle, no matter what it is, no matter what form of test. So let's go ahead and do our best. Let's motivate our students to give everything that they have. Let's use this packet to be the first step, or one of the major steps, to help prepare them for this year's LEAP assessment. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. And this is just the beginning. You have a good evening. Bye.